Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 29th January 2021. The first article for discussion is Global Antitrust and the Challenge of Big Tech. Today, the big tech companies, Google, Facebook, all these are producing abundant data. So, this data is their engine of growth. Our data is the new oil, and this data has become the monopoly of few big companies. So that's why many of the governments across the world, especially in European Union and United States of America, has started antitrust legislations. Normally, this antitrust legislation starts against monopolies. So, if we see in history on the oil giants, Standard Oil, these antitrust legislations have led to breakdown of it into multiple companies. After that, AT&T was broken down, which is a telecom company. Today, these tech companies are looked into. Let us see the nature of services provided by the tech companies. So, data given by one tech company is not going to create competition for the another tech company. A person can share the same data with multiple companies. So the data is not mutually exclusive and mutually competitive. So mutual exclusion and mutual competition is not there with a particular data, then it cannot come under the definition of monopoly. So these are called as public goods. Normally, who provided these public goods? Governments. If governments are collecting the data, we need not worry much. If private companies, profit-making private companies are collecting data and monetizing this data for advertisements, that's where we have the worry. But as the services provided by them are non-exclusionary and also non-profitable and non-competitive. I am carefully using the word non-profitable because they are not charging anything from the customer. They are taking only the data in return. But data has a lot of value, that is another factor. In this scenario, what shall we do? Are these companies not doing any good? Let us imagine our life without Google. Yes, we are dependent on search and also on mobility and many other factors on this Google. And there is something called network effect. What does that mean? If multiple people, huge sum of people are connected on a particular network, then this network effect will be created. So it adds more number of people because there is connectivity with the other people is easy. Let us take WhatsApp. There are many similar applications like WhatsApp, but people still stick to WhatsApp in spite of its inconveniences because of this network effect. In this scenario, how to regulate this, how to control these big companies? There are various ways forward. Now, governments can make it mandatory for these tech companies to make the data which they possess to share with the others. The non-personal data which the companies have can be shared in open. It allows the other companies also to grow, then competition can come up. And second thing is, in Australia, whatever the data possessed by these companies, let us take newsfeed which they possess, it is supposed to pay some money to the newspapers which are generating this data. So the people who are generating, companies who are generating data, they have to be paid. And finally, strengthening the public voice. Strong public voice can be a check against these big companies. We saw that in the case of Free Basics. A limited internet Facebook tried to bring in India, but people's voice against Facebook and in support of net neutrality made the Facebook to withdraw this proposal of Free Basics. This can be the way forward. Next article is for one and all. At the World Economic Forum, Chinese Premier Xi Jinping made an important observation. And countries and people may have differences. So these differences have to be respected and people have to live with this. The China and US relations have worsened during the Trump era. In this context, he made these remarks. So arrogance and intimidation cannot be the way forward in the international relations. This article says exactly China need to follow this particular thing. If not, it will sit along with the other arrogant superpowers. That is what article says. Next, why haven't other sports reached the height of cricket? Why the cricket is successful sport in India but not the other? So cricket is having colonial history in India. So cricket is related with class, elitism in India, slowly it has entered into masses. So cricket has become a culture. Media has played its role, and slowly a strong, financially strong that is sports institution BCCI was created. In this scenario, existence of coaches, existing of coaching institutions, and then infrastructure facilities, media attention, all these made cricket a successful sport. But the same thing is not witnessed with regard to other sports in India. And in many of the sports like chess, table tennis, Indians, when they face the foreigners, they feel intimidated. The major reason is lack of exposure to this international competition. And with IPL, Indian Premier League, etc., Indian cricketers, they got exposed to the foreign players. The fear of the foreignness or the intimidation related to the foreignness is lost among these minds. So the regular activities and greater focus, media attention, and then better infrastructure, better coaches, this can improve the sports, other sports also too in India. So India has to develop a sports culture. Sports shall be seen as a profession and sport shall develop as an industry. That's what this article emphasizes. Remembering the Holocaust, anti Semitism is again growing across the world. And Holocaust is not one single event. It has happened because of the culmination of various events. It started first with populism, and after that it took the turn of hypernationalism, and then racial superiority, and finally authoritarianism. These all have made this Holocaust possible. In this context, the present generation shall be made understand these consequences of the hatred which is being spread across the communities. After social media has come into existence, hatred has increased rather than getting decreased. In this scenario, education need to be revamped for the children to make them understand the consequences of hatred, and the no better example can be there than the Holocaust. That is what this article talks about. Plug gaps in GST to raise fiscal support. IMF chief Geeta Gopinathan says that, remember one point, India and like any other countries is facing a fiscal crisis. It is not the crisis of India alone. So India has to expand its fiscal space, but it has to be a cautious expansion. So what India has to do, work on privatization or disinvestment in the public sector, and second, decrease unnecessary expenditure and increase revenues by tightening the loopholes in GST. And even after this, we have to ensure fiscal expansion in India so that India can effectively fight this particular pandemic or economic consequences of this pandemic. India's UN Security Council seat a matter of discussion. A new ambassador of US to United Nations, Miss Linda Thomas Greenfield, what she stated is, US is supporting the India's membership to United Nations Security Council. Today it is a non-permanent member. India is also supporting the permanent membership of India. USA is supporting the permanent membership of India. But there is another group which is opposing. So India is working along with G4. The members of G4 are India and then South Africa, Germany, Japan. These are the four countries. And in every region there is an opponent to this. Argentina, Pakistan, Italy, South Korea, these are the countries which are opposing these. And they formed one group that is called Uniting for Consensus, which is also called Coffee Club, etc. The next point is, Biden wants Beijing over expansionism. Now, US is trying to repair its relationship with allies. In this context, Senkaku Islands are the disputed territories between China and Japan. In this, US has warned China saying that US and Japan security treaty also includes protection of Senkaku Islands. Any kind of effort by China to change the status quo will attract the wrath of the United States of America. The same is told in the case of Philippines on the disputed islands in South China Sea. Third is related to Taiwan. Recently, China has violated the air defense zone of Taiwan. It has sent bombers into that particular zone to intimidate Taiwan. In this context, US respects the freedom and democracy in Taiwan. That is what is being stated. US will rejoin deal if Iran is compliant. So see carefully. Trump, once he became the president, he moved off the Iran nuclear deal, which is also called Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And in return to that, Iran also withdrew its compliance to the deal. Now, what US Secretary of State Blinken is proposing is this: let Iran go back to its conditions and US will come back to the deal. That is what is being offered. Next article, Jaishankar suggests the way forward for China ties. He talks about three things. One is mutual respect and mutual sensitivities, and also mutual interests. These three have to be given primacy in foreign affairs. Then the relations can stay stronger. Added to that, he states that agreements which are there in place between the countries, these need to be respected. Line of actual control, sanctity has to be respected. No attempts to unilaterally change this. And peace and tranquility has to exist at the border. And as both India and China are talking about multipolar world, China also shall talk about multipolar Asia. Both the countries also has to work for multipolar Asia. Differences and divergences are expected to exist between the countries, but what matters is how these countries can manage these differences and divergences, and neither side shall ignore others' aspirations. Both the sides have to accommodate each other's rise. These are the various things which can guide the relationship and peace between these two neighbors, according to External Affairs Minister Jaishankar. Core values being subverted, Ansari. Former Vice President of India wrote a book. In this book, what he says is, there are core values to Indian society. These are centered around secularism, protection of our composite culture, and scientific temper, and inquiry, spirit of inquiry. These are what that has to guide India into future. On the other hand, these are being removed from the political discourse in India today. On the other side, a continuous disinformation, discrediting of the opposition, criminalization of the various people who raises their voice. This is what is happening. And using the foreign affairs are playing up the external threats, and then these disinformation campaigns have become a routine. These have become the play of the book to win the elections. So this is not going to serve the nation in the long run. That is what he tries to say here. Coming to farmers' agitation, the President of India's address is boycotted by opposition parties. You know that the first session of every year and first session after general elections to Lok Sabha will be addressed by the President of India. After that, a motion of thanks will also be voted. This presidential address to the parliament is boycotted by the opposition parties for the disinformation the government is trying to bring in to discredit the farmers' movement, a legitimate, genuine mass movement of the farmers. And also the insensitivity expressed by the government is cited as a reason for this boycott. And added to that, police issue notice to 40 farmer leaders on the violence happened on the Republic Day. So these are the articles for today. This is Dr. Rambabu signing off for Law Excellence IAS. Thank you very much.